Hi, I'm Lorraine Hamilton, and you're watching Luminary Liberators, exploring the entrepreneurial mindset journey. I'm really pleased to introduce you to Liz Scarfe today. Liz is a process-oriented psychotherapist and facilitator in private practice, and she's also the founder of the Melbourne Process Work Centre. She loves helping people with the psychological freedom they need in order to hear and live their deepest callings. So welcome, Liz.
Thanks, Lorraine. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, well, it's lovely to have you. And, you know, this series is all about mindset and the entrepreneurial mindset journey, and how fantastic to have a psychotherapist here to help us navigate it.
Yeah, it's a good start, I think.
But before we get into your story and your journey, I wondered if you could help me with something, because there's a few terms in mental health that I think are used, and I would love for you to differentiate them for me. Are you up for that?
Mm-hmm. Maybe. I mean, I might not know them all, but okay. I'll have a go.
So the main ones that I come across is psychotherapy, psychology, and psychiatry. Can you tell me the difference, or are they interchangeable? I suspect not.
No, absolutely not interchangeable. So the easiest one is a psychiatrist. So a psychiatrist is someone who's studied to be a doctor. So the background is they're a medical doctor, a traditional Western medical doctor. And then they go on to specialise in psychiatry. And the field of psychiatry, it's different now to how it started, but generally psychiatrists don't train to do talk therapy. They train to diagnose mental disorders according to what they call the DSM, which is now the DSM-5, the Diagnostic or Statistical Manual of Mental Health Disorders, something like this. So they diagnose, and then they also prescribe medications. So and it's variable. Like, some of them will have some training, some of them will be what we call trauma informed, but then others will very strongly toe the line that mental health is a chemical brain imbalance. So they'll go with this kind of theory. And I say theory because it's not a proven fact that mental health is anything about chemical brain imbalances. So yeah, they're generally not doing talk therapies. They used to, a couple of generations ago, but not so much anymore. Now, psychology is the study of human behaviour. Yeah. So most psychologists aren't actually working as, most people who've trained in psychology, they've done the undergraduate degree, they'll be working in human resources, they might be working in marketing, a whole range of other professions. Some of them will then go into counselling, psychology, and actually work with people one-on-one with, issues relative to their life and their mental wellness. These days, there's quite a few years of postgraduate training they have to do as well. I think it's about 6 or 7 years, but they're training in therapy these days. All Australian universities, best as I know, are still only teaching what they call cognitive behaviour therapy. So it's one kind, and it's all that most psychologists, not all, again, there's a real range out in the profession of what training people have, what interests they have, and what they believe about mental health. But traditionally, they're now very focused on what they call the cognitive behavioural therapy approach, which is great if that's what you need. And if it's not, you're in trouble, because that's almost all you can get if you want to get it Medicare funded. And then psychotherapy, unlike the other two, is an unregulated profession. Technically, anyone can call themselves a psychotherapist. It would be unethical to do it if you didn't have psychotherapy training, but it doesn't mean that it's illegal in the way that you can't call yourself a psychologist or a psychiatrist without, the proper qualifications. Now, psychotherapists and counsellors, they're not trained to diagnose mental health disorders. Many of them may not even subscribe to that theory of mental health disorder being, sort of around brain chemistry. A lot of them would more see it in terms of trauma and what's happened in your life and the things you've experienced and how they impact on how you're going here and now. And it's a very, very diverse profession in terms of training and modalities. But these are the people who have been trained a lot in actual therapy and in talk therapy and in trauma work. And but they're, again, very diverse. So you get transpersonal therapists who work with existential and spiritual, sort of bigger, why am I here? What's the point? Where's the meaning? Somatic therapists who work with, who really think experiences in the body are very significant ways of accessing, more of ourselves. They're two of the main ones, but there's all kinds of different branches. Humanistic, process-oriented, which is what I do. Gestalt is another big one. That's cognitive behaviour therapy is technically a psychotherapy, as well. I don't personally, and this is a pretty radical thing to say in some ways, I don't particularly see it as a therapy, more as an education system based on a certain belief that your thoughts cause your emotional states. And I think this is true to a certain degree, and also not true. I think it's a little bit too simplistic a way of thinking about the human experience. I just think we're a lot more, and we're a lot more mysterious than that approach can sort of explain. And yeah, but I guess that's my understanding in a nutshell. I'm sure others could add a lot more to that too, but I guess it's a start.
I think that was a great explanation, that you have the psychiatrist who is the person who diagnoses, then yes, the psychologist who only has CBT to fall back on, and that's something that personally I had a bit of a realization with in my own experience of experiencing CBT and then going and training in a whole number of other modalities and getting really frustrated that my experience of CBT was quite contextual, whereas there are so many other modalities that don't require the patient to experience that context again and relive it in order to deal with it. So it sounds like psychotherapy, it just opens up the toolbox of the therapist a bit more, that they have more freedom to explore what the client needs, so it's much more of a client-led process.
Yeah, absolutely, that's perfect. And I mean, I also want to say, because I don't want to throw psychologists under a bus here, it's very, very diverse. People do train in a range of things. And I guess that's what I'd say. If you're looking for a psychologist, I'd look for someone with a range of training and approaches. But I also really feel for, psychologists kind of just graduating over this past decade or so. And that they come out with CBT and thinking that this is, going to be helpful and this is what clients need. And it's only going to fit some people. It's not going to work for everybody, and they don't have anything else to try.
Yeah.
And so they can either, start feeling a little depressed that, they're not being very effective, or they can get really irritated with their clients and think it's the client's fault. Because I'm a little alternative, not mainstream in my approach, I get a lot of people, or a lot of my clients have tried CBT and they come and they say it didn't work or this happened. And one person saying, I did a 6-week course with a therapist, or 8 weeks or something. And I went to her and I said, I think I failed the course, haven't I? And she said, yes, you have, you need to do it again.
Oh, gosh.
And I was just like, that's absolutely not okay. You don't fail therapy. You can't fail therapy. Therapy fails you.
That's
if it doesn't work for you, it's because it's not the right therapist, or it's not the right therapy, or there's something not going on. You can't fail being yourself. And I
fail being yourself. I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah, and I thought, here's a therapist who probably has nothing else to fall back on, and so they're thinking, okay, CBT is supposed to be evidence-based and all this kind of thing. This person, it hasn't worked for them. Therefore, they must be the one who's at fault, not the program. And on both sides, this is not a great situation for either of the, for the therapist or the client.
Absolutely, it's heartbreaking because the therapist is doing with the best intentions what's right for the client. Okay, so I want to know.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
And this is a personal passion or bandwagon of mine, but that psychiatrists, psychologists, none of them have to do their own therapy.
Oh.
None of them ever have to have gone to therapy and work through any of their own stuff. Same with some psychotherapy and some counselling courses also have little to no requirements. Some have a massive requirement of you doing your own therapy, and I think that makes such a huge difference. I'm a big advocate for, if you're a therapist, be in therapy.
Yes.
If you're a coach, have a coach. You know,
Yes.
if you're doing any of these helping professions, make sure you're also engaged in that journey yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a huge difference to the well-being of both parties, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it's really important. And obviously, if somebody is considering going down that path, then, you know, that's good to know, and it's good information when they're selecting a training provider, which we'll come to a little bit later, because I really like some of your recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing about it too is that sometimes when people decide, you know, or they feel really called to help others, sometimes it's partly a projection.
Yeah.
So they need help. They need help. You know, you see it time and time again in therapy courses, students enrolling, really they're at the edge to go get some help themselves.
Yeah.
And so what happens unconsciously is they'll become a helper. And that is not to say it's not the right path for them, but do your own therapy as well, beforehand as well, and pick up the need for help.
Yeah. That's really great. Thank you.
Pleasure. Okay, you can keep going. I'm done.
I want to know a little bit more. You've been very, very generous already, but I actually want to know a little bit more about you. And so do members of our group, Operation Liberation. So Amanda Freeman had asked the question for you, that which falls on quite nicely for your explanation of the different threads of mental health. She was interested in the difference between awareness-based and process-oriented psychotherapy and the other strains of psychotherapy, because you describe yourself as process-oriented and awareness-based. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I guess I use the term awareness-based as quite a general phrase. It's not a specific modality. And to me, awareness-based would mean that a therapist is actually working with what they call the phenomenological, it's a ridiculous word, experience, but just what's the experience that someone's having. And so working with the signals of this, so using the therapist's awareness to help a client become more aware of their whole field of experience. So because we're always marginalising something in our experience, and we need to. We can't take everything in and integrate everything at once. But some of the things we're marginalising make us feel unwell in the end, like the conflict between not sort of including different parts of ourselves. And so I'd say awareness-based therapy is using the therapist's awareness to help the client also build awareness of what's going on. And I would say not all therapies are like this necessarily. They don't support people to build an ongoing awareness of their own experience. They just overlay a model and a belief system about how the brain works or how consciousness works and try to get people to fit in to that. And if that's actually what you need, then it's not a problem. But if it's not, then it is a problem, because again, you'll be experiencing, you'll be marginalising parts of you by trying to squish yourself into a model that doesn't really fit for you. So that's, I guess, what I tend to think awareness-based therapy is about. It's really around following your client rather than saying, here's a model that is going to help you be in the world and let's fit you into it.
Interesting. You see, you're following your client rather than the term that we often hear, which is client-led, where we think that we're doing the right thing by the client because the client's leading the process, but actually client following, I think, even describes that even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think they're the same thing, just you said a different way.
Yeah. That's interesting. So thank you for that, and thank you to Amanda.
Oh, well, the other thing too is if you're asking what process-oriented psychology is, it is an awareness-based psychotherapy. It's called process work as well. It's very Taoistic though. It's like we believe in nature. We have this very deep faith that the experiences someone's having, the subtle signals, the things they're not intending, are meaningful experiences, and that there's nothing pathological about the way people are experiencing the world or experiencing, the impact from their own trauma. And I guess we try to help people's own nature unfold more. And don't try to help people change, but help people be more who they are and help them know more of who they are. So the things about themselves that they're marginalising, and they're not bad things, they're things like, you know, the way in which they're really powerful or creative, or, you know, it's always what's coming through. Just to kind of help people pick that up a little more.
That's great. And I want to be more myself. How can I be more me?
Yeah, and I say this to clients a lot. I said there's a difference between changing and growing. When you want to change, it's usually there's some kind of inner criticism in the background saying, you're not good enough. You need to be something different. You need to do something different. Push, push, push.
Yeah.
And when you change from this position, it's short-lived and it's tiring and there's a backlash later. But when you more kind of go, okay, actually, I just want to grow more into me. I talk to people about it's like a seed doesn't change because you say, hey, seed, you're not good enough. Turn into a tree already. It just innately will grow if it's got the right conditions.
Yeah.
So for me, therapy is supporting people to have the right internal conditions just to grow more into themselves, whatever those conditions are. Usually, to be honest, it's a lot of self-love, and that's a big journey to develop that. But yeah, I think when you're more free to grow, it's easy. It just happens. We all will just grow if we've got the right conditions for it.
Yeah, and it feels easier. It feels easier to be more myself than it is to change. And yeah, I guess some people are looking for change as well. So the challenge is communicating what you do and how you do it so that people can see themselves in that place.
Yeah, I mean, look, growing is changing, but it's really about how did the change come about? Was it because you were getting pushed around internally? And that's often how people get to therapy, is they get pushed by inner criticism saying, you're not okay, you need to blah, blah. And so sometimes what we're working on a lot to start with is just finding a place where, you know what, life's tough at the moment and I'm okay and I'm a good person and I'm, kind of getting to a point of acceptance of, you know, who you are and where you've got to, and
So personal development, which is what we're talking about. And so far, the greatest personal development journey that I have embarked on or found is becoming an entrepreneur. Because if that doesn't hold a mirror up to you, then I don't know what does.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough.
So tell me a bit about your entrepreneurial journey from a mindset perspective, and some of the challenges that you might have come across. Because I think people look at mindset experts and psychotherapists and go, man, they must have their shit together. But it's all.
Oh, yeah. Let me just buff my halo for a moment. Yeah, no, they don't. We don't. Thank goodness. Look, I find it really, really tough, actually, being the entrepreneurial journey. I find it really, really tough for a couple of reasons. I guess the first one is it actually requires a lot of confidence. It doesn't require 100% confidence, because I think any entrepreneur I've ever spoken to struggles with confidence at different times. But I think to keep on, you've got to keep on building it and keep on working at it and keep on sort of feeling like, or having, what do I mean by confidence? I guess a deep faith that you have something to offer in the world that's worthwhile and that will be useful for someone. And I don't know, I tend to think our culture doesn't really support confidence a lot. It actually supports just, lay low, fit in, be a normal person, just go to your 9 to 5 and don't do anything exceptional with your life. I think, we have a tall poppy syndrome kind of culture, and so confidence is not that easy to come by in a lot of ways. And another thing for me, being a more sort of Taoist-oriented therapist, a lot of my therapy training was, a lot about what we call submitting to the Tao and submitting to nature and saying we're a facilitator of nature, not an actor or a creator in this. Die, like you die, let your identity die a lot of the time to get out of the way of this process. And so then when it comes to how do I market myself, and you've learned a lot about, it's not about you, it's really not about you, and your identity is like, okay, but marketing is, or, you know, thinking I've got something to offer that's unique is about who am I uniquely, as an expression of the universe or the Tao or something. So existentially, I've also found it really quite difficult. And also therapy, I think it's a complicated thing to market. You know, we can't make outcome claims. A lot of professions can say, I will help you clear your blocks and I'll help you feel really awesome and I'll help you do blah, blah, blah. And we just can't make those claims. In our profession, it's unethical. I can't say things like that knowing that someone who might be coming to consider working with me has got like 20 years of chronic depression. I can't say, I can clear that for you. It's not respectful. So it's an interesting line to tread around that. I'm just going into marketing instead of mindset, but that's part of it. It's like almost how do I market to myself my own, what I'm offering. So I found that a complicated thing as well, and also working out who my ideal client is, kind of thing in terms of how to shape my business. I wanted to be, you know, available to everybody. You know, and anybody who needs help, I can help. But it's actually not true. I'm not right for everyone, and not every client is right for me either. And so getting my head around that, and that's okay. That's been a big thing. But I think confidence, to be honest, to keep putting yourself out there, keep putting one foot in front of the other. I think that's really tough. And I guess the other thing, and I write about this a little bit too, because I blog about inner criticism a lot, but is that when you're really following your dreams and chasing your passions in life, you will suffer more inner criticism. Yeah. It gets worse. You know, because the risks are higher. The risks to your psychological well-being, in a sense, are higher. And so you'll have voices in you who want you to go, no, don't do it, don't go there, just go back to work, or, you know, stay small. Yeah. And you get more of that. It's not necessarily that obvious. It can come through moods and body feelings, through eating issues, all kinds of different ways that those things can happen, not just in a narration. So as you said, I think in terms of being the best personal development journey, it's up there as a really good one. It's a great vehicle, or, you know, cauldron for really cooking you.
For sure. Especially, I love that, you know, the more steps that you take, the more you go into this survival mode where, you know, your inner voice is just saying, no, we need to stay safe. We've got to stay whoa, you know, we don't want to go here. Whereas, you know, it's such a conflict. So you've got your inner being keeping you safe and keeping you alive, and you know, that primordial. But to be an entrepreneur, you've got to keep on reaching and getting out of your comfort zone. Well, you're just pulled in these two directions all the time. It's like,
and it's tricky, and I think I've come to really value small steps. Yeah, they are my mantra now, and that there is no such thing as a small step. Every step is a big step because it has a huge history behind it about what it took for you to actually take that step. And I think it has such a massive impact on confidence, is that action, just taking action, has this great impact on your self-esteem, even if it's just like a really little, you know, I just put something in the post, or I sent one email today, my business, anything. There's nothing that's a small step, I've found. It's always good to do just even a little thing.
Yeah, a little thing, and acknowledge that part of you that's trying to keep you safe. I think, you know, a lot of the historical advice has been push through, you know, just do it, and actually that just makes, I don't know if it's the same for other people, but it makes my inner critic even louder. You know, if I try and you know, shut her down, she just has a toddler tantrum. You know, it's like, no, I will be here. But if I acknowledge it, then it quietens.
Yeah, you can't really win a battle with them. They've got way more energy in a sense. I mean, they are you as well. But also they've actually, a lot of them are really sitting on a piece of gold for us too. And the ones that say, be careful, it's dangerous, it's true. coming back to this tall poppy syndrome thing, it's true. If you want to step up and be, be seen and be shining and be successful in your life, it's dangerous, especially if you're a woman. But particularly for anyone in this culture, it's dangerous. And so I would take heed of what an inner critic says. I would not do anything. Like I call them it's a good risk manager, or it's a bad risk manager. It's like an old-fashioned risk manager that says, you know what, to be safe, we should just do nothing. Yeah, great, let's just do nothing. But actually, a progressive risk manager says, okay, we're going to do this. How do we mitigate the risks? Or how do we become really responsive to risk and to crisis and to issues? So for me, I translate that as how do I develop the inner capacities and the communication skills and enough detachment that when things are going to get thrown at me, when people are going to be cranky and jealous of me, when people are going to kind of try to cut me down, what have I got inside me to hold myself through that? And how can I still stay in relationship with people who are jealous or are projecting this kind of stuff? How can I, how can I be okay and well through this? How can I take care of myself? There's a whole range of different ways and things, but I think that inner criticism is actually really bang on. It's like, it is dangerous. So, get well prepared, learn what you need to learn to take care of yourself relative to, that tall poppy cutting business.
That's a really beautiful description and explanation. Thank you. And it leads me on to something else that I really wanted to ask you, and it's, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking up at you now and saying, God, I wish I was where Liz was? How do they get started? What's the advice that you would give them?
Two things. I'm going to forget what they both are. I'm going to remember one and then forget the other. So what's the most important one? If you're ever looking at anybody and thinking you wish you were more like them, is ask yourself, what exactly about them do you wish you were more like? What's that thing that you wish you had more of, that you're kind of looking at and going, oh, I'm jealous or I'm envious or I want that. Like, get really specific. What is it exactly? And then what you need to know about this is that you actually are already like this. You wouldn't pick it up in somebody else and be envious around it or wishing you had it if you weren't actually already like it. But you might be in a little bit of conflict internally about bringing it out more and living it more.
Yeah.
So I always sort of say, if I'm feeling jealous or looking at someone going, I wish I was more like that, I go, yeah, what is it about them? Oh, okay, it's this, that they're really good at writing or something or other else. And I'll go, maybe I'm actually good at that too. Or I really need to improve in that area. What can I do to improve in that area as well and get more like that? And also, how can I pick up the ways in which I'm already good at that? Or let me explore the ways in which I block that part of me as well.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing I would say about, anytime you kind of wish you were like somebody else. I would say, but wish that you were more like you. And the second thing is too, is for me, my whole journey has mostly been about just following what's felt good for me, what's felt healthy, what's felt well, and what's had really good feedback. And by feedback, I often describe what I'm like if I'm shopping. Like if I see a jacket that I really love, I'll be like, oh my God, I've got to have it, right? And if I've got that kind of energetic feedback, I know that, yes, is this the right jacket? Yes. In other parts of my life, this is the right direction. Yeah. And maybe if I get really scared as well, it's sometimes a good indication too. But if I'm looking at the jacket or looking at something else, I'm going, oh yeah, it's nice. It's really nice. I like the colours and it's not a bad fit. Yeah, I mean, I could imagine myself wearing that. It's good. That's a no. That is not good feedback. That is me trying to justify why I should buy it. Like, it's kind of good, and but it's not. It's negative feedback. It's flat. It's not. Oh my God. And so my philosophy in life is to try to follow the oh my God, if I can, and things that really engage. Really engage me at much more than just an intellectual level. If I'm sitting there debating and I've got no feeling about it, it's probably not the right direction.
So if I heard that correctly, then your two pieces of advice would be, if you are looking up to someone and wishing you were more like them. Get really, really specific about what it is that what part of them that you really want to be more like. And then look inside yourself as to how you can do that more, because it's already inside you. You might just need to give it the opportunity to grow, or to notice any blocks that you might be putting in its way. And then the other thing is to understand when something feels good for you, because you say that this is how you feel with lots of energy, but other people might feel differently. Like they might have that sort of very calm, okay, considered, and that's what's right for them. But you have to understand what your individual guiding emotion is, and then trust it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's fear. Sometimes it's fear and nervousness will happen at the edge of something that is right. But I tend to think if you're not having any emotional response to a certain direction, then it's it's not your direction. If you're scared or excited, it's quite possibly the right way to go.
Yeah.
And no, sorry, keep going.
No, that sense of fear and excitement presenting very, very similarly in your body. There's a very fine line between the two. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, yep.
Fantastic. Now, Liz, I know that you've got a really important message that you want to share, and I really wanted to give you the opportunity to speak your message and leave us with something that is just so important to you. So what's the most important thing that you want to share with us?
Oh, my big thing at the moment is to say diversity is not a disorder, and partly that's commenting on a historical pattern where the mainstream approach to mental health is that we create a whole bunch of disorders based on different things. Like a long time ago, being left-handed was considered a disorder, like people who were left-handed really suffered a lot in being forced to be right-handed and were assaulted and abused in schools. And, and so these days we don't think of left-handed people as weird. But we think of other people, we think of people who hear voices as weird or psychotic. And actually, it's a really normal response. It's not common necessarily, but it's a normal response, particularly to trauma, a whole range of other things. And that's at one end of the spectrum. But I also kind of think, even just if you're not having extreme experiences relative to your mental wellness, a lot of the time we've inherited and internalized these cultural messages and messages from our family around what it means to be a good person or a good woman or a good man or a good citizen, and they don't fit who we are. Like we've kind of got a uniqueness and a certain way of being and things to bring into the world. And as we unfold that, we'll continually come into conflict with these messages about what you should be.
Yes,
and that you should kind of fit in and be a little bit like everybody else and normal, whatever it is. And that any ways in which you're not, there's something wrong with you. If you're not quite in this kind of, and if it's uncomfortable for you to get squished in here, there's also something wrong with you. And for me, it's like saying, no, you're just diverse. We're actually all diverse. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't fit, if you're the round peg in the square hole, stop trying to fit in the square hole. It's not right for you. It doesn't mean that being a round peg is anything wrong. Yeah. Your diversity, your uniqueness is not pathological. It's not anything wrong. So that's what I mean by diversity is not a disorder. It's like we think that in our own head, but the way that we're unique or different to others means somehow that we're not quite right, that something inherently wrong with us, or at some deep level we're broken or we're too wounded or tainted or something. And it's just not true. It's just that we're all a little different. Being able to follow your own path is really, I think, it's a huge privilege to be able to do that. Not everybody can. Financial or, family-based responsibilities is a whole range of things that make it really difficult for people to live really from their own heart. So it's a real privilege, but it's the best path to wellness that I know.
I love that. It's so important. And from my perspective, coming through an entrepreneurial lens, we're all searching for that thing that makes us unique and different, yet we're searching for a blueprint that's going to tell us what it is. So, it's, as a challenge and something that I love to work with people on. So, yeah, I love that. Diversity is not a disorder.
And look, I think, being a human is just a lot about how do you resolve or live with paradox as well. And so, it's like we do have a yearning to find our own uniqueness and follow our own path, and we have a yearning to fit in and be accepted in the culture and in our tribe and have somewhere. So it's about how do you balance both of those without sacrificing one or the other, but finding a way through that that's good for you and sits well, really deeply for you. And sometimes it does mean there's some people or some groups or some family members you're really not going to spend a lot of time with or connect with, and just going, that's okay, that's just me. And doesn't mean that I'm going to be lonely and isolated and have no friends. So you just got to find the right ones, or it's a little bit glib, but yeah, it's releasing yourself from that sense of should. There's so much. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And then it's also a lifelong journey. It's not like you work on it for a couple of years and go, right, now I'm sorted, now I know who I am and I can just do that. It's because we're all evolving constantly as well. So you don't ever get there. There's nowhere to get. You're just kind of continually unfolding, I think. And it's fun.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being my guest on this episode of Luminary Liberators. It's been great. I love talking to you, and I think we could probably talk for hours and hours and hours on this. It's
I think we could.
fascinating stuff. But how can our viewers reach you? How can they learn more about your work and reach you if they want to connect?
Oh, I think just the best spot to start is just my website. I'm continually filling it full of stuff and changing it, but it's just lizscarfe.net. So. And
Liz Scarfe has an E at the end, is that right?
Has an E at the end, yeah. So Liz and then scarf, like what you put around your neck with an E on the end.
Fantastic. I'm sure.
And then, my phone number's there and email, and more than welcome to, contact me, get in touch for a chat or ask questions. There's also, there's a lot of articles, or not a lot. I'm building this, there's about 5 articles at the moment on inner criticism, which I always recommend to people. I think they're really helpful, and they've got some good tips about how to do your own, start your own work with this. And then also another page called Help Yourself that's also kind of got it's like my free help page. Any webinars that I'm doing, free webinars are there, and there's also like a little growing list of little self-help guides. It's like 1 or 2 pages on a particular topic. Some of them are like self-help, and some of them are just like, here's something you really need to know. I've got one about liberation psychologies and why people need to know what they are. So sometimes it's just my bandwagon too, but horses for courses.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed it, and hopefully everybody else has too. And I'm sure they will be looking you up. I'll certainly be following up and having a look at your page. It's great.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun. It's been really, really good talk.